Yo, what's up guys? Today we are coaching an Emerald Gwen player, and because they watch my videos and they kind of know about the stuff I kind of talk about, they're relatively efficient and focus pretty well on farming. There's still some issues with the farming that we go over in the video, but I kind of want to show you guys how a lower level player will struggle even if they listen to me and play relatively selfishly, and sort of what the issues are once you get that gold, how you can actually use that gold to sort of close out a game, which is going to be a lot of focus around waves, is going to be how to play fights properly when you do have a lead, keeping track of spells and stuff like that, and some other details as well that we focus on. So I really want you guys, if you're struggling, you're like, hey Talon, I listen to your videos, I farm well, but I'm still not carrying these jungle games like I watch other high elo players doing. What am I doing wrong? Well, it's likely that this is the next step in your gameplay that you need to make after you focus on farming efficiently. So yeah, that's basically it. That's the intro for the video, but if you guys are interested in coaching from a rank 5 sovereign autofill player, just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description to my Discord server. If you're interested in coaching, just $15 an hour, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
So I'm playing a lot more jungle. I'm Emerald in jungle. I'm doing pretty good. I just struggle in some areas, I guess. I play a lot of Gwen.
Yep.
And so, she's a late game champion. So I typically just focus on farming, and then so people lose their lanes, and then they get mad because I don't gank them because they're losing their lanes, and then they start to throw. Like I think, this Mordekaiser throws a fit and was pinging me all early game, but he was losing against Echo. Well, he was mad at me before that, right? So he wanted to switch with me he wanted me to go Baron and him to have jungle. I didn't switch, and
Gotcha.
so he starts to lose against this Echo, and then he constantly was pinging me, and I never ganked him because he was losing. I'm like, I'm not gonna gank you if you're losing your lane.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So the problem's kind of like teammates end up losing lane. How do we play with that if we're playing a late game champion? Okay. You see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll go in. We'll have that kind of in our mind as a potential thing. Definitely mute chat. Make sure that you turn on party chat so you don't have to listen to them. And then if they do start pinging a lot, you can go in game on the scoreboard and then click the mute button there, and then you won't see pings as well. So that's something to keep in mind, because especially when we're in the lower ranks, we definitely don't care about our teammates' opinions, especially if they're mad at us before the game even starts. Then clearly they're going to be kind of weird. But yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll kind of slip through the clear unless we see anything specific. But I assume the clear, we probably know how to clear. Yeah. So, do you switch up your pathing based on kind of where you want to path towards, or are you kind of doing the same path every game?
I pretty much do the same path every game. I go from red buff to Krugs to Raptors to Wolves to Blue to the Scuttle, and then I go to Gromp.
Gotcha. So this is pretty fine. So this clear speed, I don't know if remind me at the end if you remember. We'll look up like what a Gwen jungle clear looks like and see how the timing is compared to what you get it. Just to see, because 156 is pretty late, but I don't see anything super wrong with how you're clearing. You should be kiting this up though. Make sure you're kiting the camps to the very edge so you can get to where you want to walk quicker. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like this is fine. You did it most of the other times, but yeah, like small amount of speed could have been gotten there, but overall, I mean, I think your clear is pretty fine. I do want to say though, like it is important to try to switch your clear based on where your like better laners are. So you do the normal clear that you just did if you want to path towards your top side, and then if you want to path towards your bottom side, then you would just start blue buff and then do basically the same clear but backwards for the most part. And that's important as a Gwen because it's really important for you to try to path towards whatever's going to give you the easiest early game. So like if you know that the enemy jungle is starting on, say, their blue buff, maybe because they're in Olaf and Olaf always starts blue, just as a hypothetical. In that type of a case, you're going to want to start on your blue buff so that you're not matching with that Olaf, because Olaf would beat you early. So that type of thing is kind of important. That's the one reason we want to switch our pathing. Here you looked for a gank because you saw the Ori was low. That's fine, but you should have just gone right back to your Gromp after instead of hitting the Rammus a little. But that's mostly fine. Like even you waste like a couple seconds, I don't really mind. Then you recall fine, you go to farm. So like 90%, pretty much just fine gameplay here. I might be more concerned with farming my camps and then going, but because you see, you know, someone who's pretty low, you try to, oh, it's a Mordekaiser ult. That's why it looked like you weren't. But I would personally, like I said, just kind of focus on that farm. But I don't like absolutely hate that you wasted that time, as long as you go and you farm all these things really, really quickly now. And I'm skipping through because this decision making in the early game is obviously not really mechanical, so I can just skip through and just talk about it, because then we get to the other points and we can spend more time on those. But yeah, your focus on farming is pretty decent. You get a little distracted, but in these situations you saw, you could possibly get a kill. The problem is here, you're not getting a recall now because you wasted that time. So like, I will say it's rather important that you're a little bit quicker with these decisions. So the first thing is your first full clear probably can be a little faster. Gwen's slow clear speed, so maybe that's just the fastest she can do it. Like I said, we'll find a video to really see. But regardless of that speed, even if it was really, really slow, after that, because you're playing a really slow clear speed champ, you got to get on your camps pretty much as they're spawning, so that you can then come back to this blue side and get you know, clear each side of the map twice while still being able to recall. So you see how, because we kind of wasted that time, 1 fighting that Rammus up here, 2 on this random gank on Echo, and now we don't have time to set up for the objective or recall or anything. So essentially, instead of doing those ganks during those timings, you might as well use those timings to get your camps, and then use that 30 seconds to 45 seconds now that you haven't cleared any camps to then make more plays. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think I end up recalling anyway to get my
Yeah, and see, this
item.
is a problem as well. It's like the objective is spawned, and then you go for this Gromp when we should pretty much just be on it right away. If we're gonna like on the dragon right away, right? So it's like we're doing both things wrong, where it's not only are we not recalling fast enough, but then we're also not going to the objective. Because even here, like at this point, we just want to contest an objective somewhere just to get something, whereas now the enemy can get both objectives because we decide to recall late. So you really have to be getting like hitting that certain timer where it's like you've cleared each side of the map twice by the time that you have by the time the objective spawns. Now, because you're in like a low rank, this is fine, right? But if you were in a higher rank, the enemy would have been on this dragon 10 seconds ago after already taking the Herald, and your game would be, you know, completely screwed. So even though, you know, it's not the end of the world, it still ends up not being great, because now you're at 6 minutes in the game and you only just now got the dragon. So essentially we've had no impact on like the game, and we've just farmed anyway. So basically what I'm telling you is you could have farmed more efficiently and then potentially had impact over the objective, whereas you tried to have too much impact over the lanes. So you are farming pretty well, but you still have optimizations to be made there. And you just have to accept, like, if you're going to play Gwen jungle, you just do have to accept that she's going to be falling behind in the early game, and that your laners are going to lose more than they're going to win because they have a jungler who isn't good at ganking. And so if you want a different style, then, you know, play Vi, play Jarvan, play Xin Zhao, play whoever, right? And that's totally fine as well. But Gwen is a fine jungle. Also, rush your mana boots. Don't rush Riftmaker. Rush mana boots. Maybe you just recalled on the timer where you just... Yeah, wait, no, you should... Because then you have... Unless you just somehow recalled on a timer where you only have Riftmaker. But yeah, just definitely get your mana boots rush first. It's a better power spike. Makes your clearing better quicker. Makes you just have more damage on your ganks. So like a lot of times what you're going to do... Yeah, no, so you recalled... Because you recalled after you full cleared here, right? So... You did, right? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, twice. I recalled twice.
Exactly. So if you do this entire full clear, that's actually the other thing. If you do this entire full clear where you do your red side then your blue like you normally do, you'll have enough gold for mana boots, and then you actually are like you're a champion, right? Like you have some strength. You're not going to be crazy strong. You're an early game Gwen, but you have that damage where you can actually kill someone. But yeah, I mean, you just getting to the late game is all that actually matters this game, and you just getting there as farmed as possible. So again, we should just go and we should farm all these camps, and then after you farm these camps, you go to your blue side, you farm your blue side, and then once you farm your blue side, now you can look for a play. If you want to quickly look for a mid or bot play as your camps are spawning, that's fine, but you're really just going to have to go and farm first. And this is the reality of Gwen jungle. Like, I have played a lot of Camille jungle, who's a similar kind of, you know, really slow clear speed late game champion. I've played like hundreds of games of this, whatever. And you're sometimes going to just feel useless in the early game, and you just have to accept that the game is going to go rather poorly. So most of what's happened is just a circumstance you're going to have to accept with this choice of champion. Whereas, again, it seems like you feel like this is a problem. Likely the problem is later on in the game with a lot of the decision making. Obviously, we'll see. And, you know, some games are unwinnable. I want to make clear, obviously. You know, you can't win every game. But, like, for example, this is going to be one of the key timers Now that your clear speed's pretty fast, right? You have kind of, you know, some of your items. You're not as weak of a champion now. You're now going to utilize this extra time that you have because you're going to clear camps quicker to make plays typically on the opposite side of wherever the objective's going to spawn and start playing for outer turrets to bring the gold quicker or closer to even. And so because the top and the mid turret are gone, or even if the mid turret wasn't, the mid turret's not gone, but it doesn't matter because mid turret's really hard to get. Because the top turret's gone, the bot turret is our main focus. And so you're typically going to want to, whenever you clear this red side, to make a quick gank on the bottom side when, you know, just really quickly right after you get your camps, basically. Whereas when you go top side right now, you're just going to farm your top side and usually leave after because you don't have much else to do. And then another thing with these late game champions is you can play really heavily around waves and almost play like a split pusher. So when the game ends up going like this, where there's a random fight in mid, but there's no objective up, you're going to use that time to just farm a wave. Because did you know that past 7 minutes and 30 seconds, you get max gold, like you get all the gold from the minions?
Yeah, the full gold amount instead of like minus 28
And
gold,
so,
whatever.
yeah, you can utilize that really, really well during this timer to just farm. So because your Mordekaiser is going mid, because, you know, we've kind of established he's dumb and he's mad at you for whatever reason, go and take this wave. This is 300 gold right here from these two minions. And then you start hitting that turret. So that turret, again, becomes your focus and mainly what you're playing for. Whereas your teammates get caught here and we end up kind of wasting our time trying to fight with them when it's probably just a losing fight because you're still you're still not that strong. Maybe you get a kill, so, you know, I guess we get one kill, which is kind of fine. But going bot side again, that one kill is 300 gold roughly. We would have gotten that 300 gold from the bottom side, and then we would have started hitting the turret. And again, because that turret's our goal is important. And so even after here, if you go to your Krugs, I want you farming this bot wave right after. So I'm gonna hope that we do, and we do. So this is perfect. Again, could have done a wave earlier, but still good. And then now we just go back to farming. So I mean, again, overall your decision making, it's not too poor. It's like pretty solid. And again, could just be slightly more efficient. But you guys are behind and you're not on your item spikes, and I am, you know, going to infer that you're probably going to go towards the dragon, and that's going to be the real big mistake because, again, you have this dragon already, which means that you don't need to contest the next two dragons because they won't get soul. It's impossible because you have a dragon. And so a lot of people on these late game champs, what they'll try to do is they'll try to like get the dragons if they get the first one or whatever, and they'll try to fight and fight and fight early game. The best jungler on our server is named Corrupt. You're NA, right? Are you NA?
Yeah.
So the best player in NA, probably just the best solo queue player in NA, but also just the best jungler for sure, is named Corrupt. If I play against Corrupt, I can almost guarantee you that like I'm gonna get 2 to 3 dragons as a team because he doesn't give a fuck about them because he's playing late game champions very often. He's purely focusing on his own gold, and he almost always uses this timer as a timer to get a bunch of gold. Like these dragons are so irrelevant to him, and maybe you're gonna not go for the dragon. You know, obviously I don't know, right?
But dragon soul like a winning strategy, or like like a win condition? What do you want to call it?
Isn't dragon soul a win condition? Is that what you said? Yeah, so it is. So let's think about the logic here, though. So an individual dragon sucks, right? The stats are like Infernal gives you like 3% extra damage or something, or like a burn or whatever. Basically, they all give you such minor stats. So are we in agreement that a singular or 2 dragons are pretty useless, but the soul is really, really strong?
Yes.
Okay, so by that logic, to get the soul, you have to win all 3 dragon fights. If you've won the dragon fight at 5 minutes, then it spawned like, what, 4.5 minutes later? So then you won a dragon fight at roughly, let's say, 10 minutes, right? And then you win a 3rd dragon fight at 15 minutes. You now get the soul. So from 5 minutes, right, the first time you fought a dragon, to 15 minutes, a 10-minute time frame, you had no real advantage from the fact that you got dragons. But after those 10 minutes, now you're really, really strong, right? Is that agreed upon?
Yeah.
And so if you want to fight at 5 minutes, you want to fight at 10 minutes, and you want to fight at 15 minutes, you probably already won the game because you were stronger in the early game, you were stronger in the mid game, and you were stronger at the late game. So now, cool, we have a soul. It makes it easier to win that game, but that game was already going to be a win even if in the hypothetical world Dragon Soul was useless. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
Okay.
It's not all that important then, is what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is, if we end up in the situation where the enemy has 2 dragons and the gold is relatively close, it's really, really important that you deny them that 3rd dragon because that soul is important. But what I'm saying is those first 2 dragons didn't really matter whether you were stronger or weaker as a team. So it is important to make sure they don't get the soul and to make sure that you have at least a dragon, but it's not that important to ensure the dragon for yourself because there's other ways that can further your lead that will make you stronger and most likely able to win anyways. However, say that you have the first dragon, like you do here, and say in this game the gold was reversed. So let's say you were at 34.4 as a team and they were at 32.3. I would tell you to contest dragon because you're stronger and you're probably going to win it. And if you win that fight, you get to further your lead because you win a fight. So it's good. So the dragon is, the first two dragons are essentially just a way to force a fight if you are already ahead. But if you're behind, then you just want to trade on the opposite side of the map. And the only thing that you're trying to make sure of is that they don't get all three dragons. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Cool.
So what do you typically contest, in your opinion? Do you go for the first dragon or the what is it?
The Herald, yeah. It's called an ensemble. Yeah. Herald, though, yeah. I just call it Herald. So the Herald is a better objective for the reasons I described, because you get immediate gold from the Herald, so it gives you immediate strength, whereas the dragon strength you get is not until, again, if we maybe get the soul. So that's why Herald is a better objective. However, I'm not going to contest the Herald if my top laner is doing really, really bad, especially if my dual lane is doing good. So if I'm behind as a whole, then the objective I'm going to contest is going to be whatever the enemy don't contest. If I'm ahead as a whole, I'm going to contest ideally whatever they do contest because I want to fight because I'm ahead. And if I have one side of the map ahead and one side of the map behind, I'm going to go to the side of the map that's ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And if you want me to write this down, remind me at the end, right? We'll write it as notes. Actually, I'll just write it real quick. Yeah.
One other question. So for like pushing on the opposite lane, like the opposite side of the objective, like the lane you push on the opposite side of it's kind of what we talked about with the Baron lane with Fiora. Would that not be my Baron laner's job? I know that he's like mad at me, but would he not...
Is pushing the lane your Baron laner's job? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, and if I do push it, is he not gonna, throw a hissy fit about it? And should I
yeah, so first of all, yes, it should typically be his job. Second of all, yes, he will likely get mad at you. So he's already mad at you. He's already pinging you with the way you've played, and you didn't do that. So does it really matter? That's the first thing, right? He's going to get mad at you regardless because he's, probably 12 years old. Like, so we can kind of establish they're going to get mad regardless because they're just bad at the game and they don't even know, like, what it is that they should get mad at. So they're just going to be mad because they want to be mad. So we can't really control that. We shouldn't try to control our teammates' mental. Some people will tell you different. Some people will tell you you should try to, whatever. I've gotten really high win rates and climbed in solo queue by literally thinking of my teammates as AI. Like, that's how I think of them. I don't think of them as real people because in my mind they basically aren't. So that's how I recommend you approach it. If you want to approach it differently, you're free to, but that's what I say. Secondly, I think of gold on myself as infinitely more valuable than gold on my teammates, and that's how I want you to think about the game. Now, the reason I want you to think this is because it puts the control of the game in your hands, where you're the one with the carry, you're the one with the gold, you're the one who gets to dictate the pace of the game because you're strong. And so this puts a lot more pressure on you to carry and means that one or two mistakes is a bigger deal. But in the long run, it means that you have the control over whether or not you win the game. Because, if you don't make those mistakes, you utilize that gold well, you're going to absolutely carry. And that's what players like Corrupt do, for example. He's, a person I use a lot because he plays a lot of carry farming junglers that do this. And so that's the type of style you need to have because your champion strengths aren't really, noticeable until 2, 3, 4 items. And so you need as quick as possible to get there. So again, that's why I'm okay with you taking the wave because you're getting that gold onto you, at which, again, gold on your champion is really, really useful, of course. And another thing is your teammate probably wouldn't get the gold anyway. So like it's also gold that's just probably sitting there. So like let's actually go look at the fight real quick. So during the time this fight occurred, the minion waves are currently hitting each other. So your minions are his minions and your minions, right, are just going to die. Like, they're going to die to both of. So, like, nobody's getting them, right? So it's not even that, like, sure, if your teammate was already there, don't go and steal a wave when he's there, right? Like, don't just take it from his hands as he's on the wave. But he's going mid, you know what I mean? Or he's, like, all the way back here. He's not on the wave. And so when he's not even there, the minions are just going to die. Like, right now, they're just dying. You're just losing these minions currently. So it doesn't really matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. We'll go back then to where we were. And so then you do end up just going to the same side. But then they end up getting, basically a free contest on the dragon. You got kind of lucky that Echo isn't there, which isn't something you should have expected. But Echo not being there means that it's kind of like going to maybe actually be somewhat of an okay outcome. But even with Echo not being there, which again is obviously very dumb of him, the fight still isn't anything like super, super good for us. But it's not bad because, again, he trolled. But even the fact that Echo did go there means that now Echo is getting a bunch of gold on that side of the map, and he's taking nearly your entire inhib. and you took your turret. So even when Echo made a dumb choice, it still is a little rough for us, right? Because he is getting a lot of this turret, and we are kind of losing a lot. So yeah, I think he actually does just get the straight up hole in him. So even he's kind of dumb. He could have just, okay, he gets it anyway. So you can see, like, even in the best, this was kind of like the best case scenario for you, and you lost your inhib. Like, if in the best case scenario we're losing our inhib, it's probably not a good decision. So pushing out that wave earlier would have been much more beneficial for us. And again, I know you're thinking like, oh, well, that's my Mordekaiser's job. Yes, Mordekaiser covering the wave, that'd be lovely. We'd love that. We'd give him a kiss on the cheek. We'd be really happy about it. But he's not going to do that because he sucks. And you should expect all of your Emerald teammates to suck because they're an Emerald. So that's unfortunately just what we have to do. Again, not optimal, but I even think about my Challenger teammates as sucking. So unfortunately, that's just people are pretty bad at Wild Rift. But even if, say, your Mordekaiser was bot side, you going there with him would mean you get to kill Echo, and then you get the turret after, which again, remember how I was saying this turret's really valuable. It's giving you a lot of gold. And then you'd get a kill, you'd get waves, you get turret, and all of a sudden, instead of being down 2,000 gold like you were, you'd be even gold, and the gold would be on you because you got the wave, you got the turret, you got all that. And again, we explained the dragon situation. Since you already had a dragon, getting the second dragon, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, does that all kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And so the other thing is, now that Baron's up, you have to play on the same side as Baron. So like, you also, now at this timer, you no longer really have the luxury to make plays to get your gold back. The only way you're going to get your gold back to even is through fighting and winning a fight. Whereas before Baron's up, there's no objective that's game losing, right? Like, the Baron is game losing, potentially, if the enemy get it. And so you have to be on the same side so that the enemy don't just, get it when you go other sides. You can no longer show yourself on top side. Whereas when the second dragon's up, you can show yourself on the opposite side of it because you can let them get the dragon. So now the only way you win is if they do something dumb like this, which, props to them, they did it. But obviously we shouldn't really be relying on our opponents being really, really dumb. And then here, because you see two people topside, you should force Baron, and I think it's just free Baron, yeah, so. Okay, so Mordekaiser recalls, he completely trolls you, so. This is just purely unlucky that your teammate's really, really fucking stupid. And that's unlucky. Nothing you can really do about that. So now you just go farm quickly. The only thing is I don't want you showing on the wave. Since you have vision on Baron, it's okay to farm because you can just go there right away. But like if you see them on it. But yeah, that's just purely unlucky. So you just recall, you go back. I think this choice is fine. Your teammate ints. And so like this sequence here, as long as you don't just like hard int and go in, I guess you just take a kill, so I'd be fine. Going in 1v3 here is pretty, yeah. So, I mean, this is just mechanically making a mistake here. So when you are playing a carry champion, like let's say Gwen, or just any champion who's rather squishy, you have to really keep track of spells and like your teammate's location. And just let your teammates kind of make the plays first. So the first thing is we see 3 traps on the ground, which means there's no way we're walking here because it's just, it's going to be really hard. But you walk through anyway. And then the other thing is when you're playing these squishy champs, you need to keep track of cooldowns really, really well, and keep track of what's dangerous to you. So you just used your second ability, right? Like your whole defensive thing. And so now that you don't have it, instead of going in right away like you do, you should have waited for it to come back off cooldown and then go in. Whereas now you go here, you instantly get blown up. So you need to keep track first of your defensive tools. And when your defensive tools are not available, you need to be much, much safer and wait for your teammates to make the plays and go forward for you. The second thing is you need to keep track of the enemy offensive tools. So, for example, if we look here into the fight, we need to wait until Luck's first ability is out and probably, realistically Orianna's poke or something like that. But we're going to need to wait until these spells are used. Do we see these things used? We saw Luck's third ability, but we don't see her first ability. So she could easily kill us. She ends up just ulting us as well. And then, again, they have their spells still here. So basically, keeping track of offensive spells with the enemy and defensive spells for yourself and playing around those cooldowns is how you're going to approach these fights instead of kind of just going forward a bit willy-nilly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't realize that I had dashed. I knew that I had used my second ability, but I had not realized that I had dashed with it. And that caused it to, like, you have it, and then if you dash, it'll follow you. I didn't know that I had dashed and it followed me.
So you thought you would have like a third cooldown of it, basically.
Yeah, like I'd be able to move with it. I thought I'd still had it, but I didn't.
Yeah, I got you. So that's understandable if that's just like a, you forget, that happens, right? So I'm fine if that's the reasoning for why we forget. And then again here, so like this is kind of where it's a little more okay to contest the dragon when you're down 2,000 gold, but you are one soul, drag away from soul. So this dragon I'm more fine with you contesting. now that we're in this circumstance. So that's what I was kind of like, trying to explain when I spoke about Dragon, is like, it's not good to try to force the Dragon Soul win condition, but if you have 2 dragons, or the enemy has 2 dragons, now it becomes a relatively big deal. And so setting up on that side of the map would be ideal for us, which means we just go towards the top side and get vision, whereas you're spending a lot of time here when I'd rather we're more around there. And then obviously if they go for Baron, you have to contest Baron, but like, you see how you're making this entire fight, and it's partially your team too, but this is still you two. Like, you didn't need to be in here. You could have been pinging, you could have been hovering mid-wave, that type of thing. But you end up setting up on the complete opposite side of the Soul, which is a great win condition, if again we're in the circumstance where Soul is available. And to set up for it, you could just push the mid-wave first. So before objectives, it's important to push waves too, often the mid-wave. So you could have just gone on that mid-wave, pushed it there, and then if the enemy kept going, then you could have maybe came. You're more of a cleanup champion anyway. You're not going to start a fight, so you're just going to end up being useless here. And now the enemy will get the Soul anyway. So just better setups for objectives, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I came here because I saw like 3 of them hovering around Baron, and I was concerned that they were going to try to get it.
Yeah, so if they started Baron, you could have just pushed this mid-wave and you would have been able to get there. So I'm not saying you just instantly go Dragon. I'm saying you try to get your team to go Dragon, and if they don't, then you just hover the Baron side with them. But the problem is you're hovering all the way over here when you could be on the mid-wave, where you also would be able to find a nice flank angle. Whereas here, another mistake as well. So does that make sense, like that part of it?
Yeah, I didn't think to do that. I was trying to watch them to see what they were doing.
Yeah, and that's fair. And so then the other thing is, again, one of your teammates just died. All of the enemy are alive and they have their cooldowns, and you're 75% HP, and you walk forward and try to fight them. Obviously that makes no sense. Like, of course you're gonna die. And this is just fighting. This is just, these things are a little hard for me to specifically coach you on because it's like rather straightforward. It's just something we need to be more cognizant of. Are our teammates dead? Defensive spells, offensive spells, same thing we spoke about before. You really don't have this awareness, and so even if you get a bunch of gold on yourself, if you're playing the fights like this, then it's not going to matter because you're not, playing the fights in a way to carry. So I think you have an above average idea for an Emerald player of how to get good amounts of gold on yourself to be in a position to carry. Like, you're 3, 2, and 6, which is not an insane scoreline, and yet you have 12k gold, which is, compared to the pace of the game, pretty good, right? So like, you're not bad on the farming aspect. We talked about how it could be better, but overall that's above average. The problem is how you set up for objectives, which objectives you choose to fight, and which ones you don't choose to fight in the mid game, and then how you play the fights, which is, again, keeping track of these spells a lot more and just being a bit more patient. If you improve on those things, then you're going to start to realize that, yes, playing this selfish play style is better, but it's only better if I then use that gold effectively, because right now the way you're using your gold is how an Emerald player would use their gold, and that's why you're going to continue to be an Emerald. Unless we fix this. So this is kind of going to be the main focus, essentially, is what I'm saying. And then obviously they get the Baron here because we did play the fight poor enough. Because even say you made all the same decisions to get to that fight that you were in, but then you just didn't die. Now there's the threat of you possibly stealing. And then here it makes no sense to try to fight because the Baron's up and you're just trying to defend the waves. So once again, it's the lack of awareness. Nobody, look at your map, right? Nobody's even close to you. And you're going on a person solo. And the person you're going, this is Lux, right? Yeah, so you're going on Lux. So the other thing is, Lux will probably first ability you and potentially run away anyways. You don't know if she has flash or not. And her teammates are nearby, which you can see because there's a wave right there. So it literally gives you vision of it. So just, again, it's the lack of awareness. And so even if you did kill her there, which again, you don't know if she has flash or not, so it's likely that you don't kill her. Even if you kill her there, it's not beneficial for you because a 1-for-1 when you're relatively strong as a late game champion, when they have Baron, means they're going to push the game for free and you just lose. Any questions about anything throughout the game? It's fine to have questions, to be clear. It's totally good. Just any questions or anything.
Okay, so that they got Baron and then they went to Dragon. And if I'm the only one that's rotating, I should probably not do that.
If you're the only person who's alive, then you should just give it up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was trying to I don't know if you noticed, the Moor basically sold all his items, was running around in circles in the spawn, and so he basically gave up. And so I was
so Mordekaiser gave up at the end, and he's a little baby, right? But he also was the best player on your team. He played better than you. He played better than everyone else. He's bad. Don't get me wrong. He's bad, and he's also has awful mental. And that that's one of the reasons he's stuck here, is because he has awful mental as well, and so these things happen. And it sucks, and it'd be nice if he wasn't a little bitch, right? Like, don't get me wrong, it's fucking stupid, but he gave you the opportunity to win the game. He had a good early game. He was ahead, and then his macro was bad, because everyone's macro is bad in Emerald. But he was not the reason you lost. He was annoying, and he was, again, a whiny baby, and that's why he's going to be stuck in this rank. But if we're just looking at it from the perspective of you, he did not inhibit your ability to win that game.
Okay, fair enough.
And do you want to share the other thing, or is it still not uploaded? Do you want to like share your screen now,
No.
or what?
Yeah, it's uploaded. Hold on.
Okay,
You want me to
then
just copy the thing like I just did?
Wait, what'd you say? Sorry.
You want me to copy the link in the?
Yeah, just copy the link again.
All right.
All right, cool. Kate backdoor. I'm excited to see the Kate backdoor.
Oh, it sucked, man. I did man. I tried so hard.
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm
like,
recording.
I was on top of my thing, trying to make sure it all happened, and then 2 of my teammates die.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a game where you hard carried and your team ran it down. So it's one of those.
We didn't have a minion wave. It was the end of the game. We didn't have a minion wave, and so I pinged off, said, "Hey, the Elder Dragon was up." I was like, "Let's go get this thing." I pinged it, and I pinged retreat, and they stayed there, and 2 of them died. And I was like, I have to rotate the mid to deal with these guys. And while I was trying to deal with 2 of them not getting the Elder Dragon, she ran it down mid and ended the game basically.
Okay, so I'm just curious, and this is a genuine question. Maybe it's not me, but basically the point is, you had a really, really good game, and then it ended in a really annoying way. Are you feeling like there's something to learn from this game, or are you like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think there's still a lot we can learn from it, or do you think it's a valuable game to watch?
I think maybe you can tell me where I made a decision wrong, just so this doesn't, like, I don't know, like, I tried to do my best, like, we got Baron, we pushed wave, but we didn't have a wave at the end.
Yeah.
2 of my teammates basically stayed there and died, and so it's like, okay, I gotta back off now. And then 2 of their teammates rotated to the Elder Dragon. I'm like, you know what? I don't want them getting Elder. And so while that was happening, I didn't realize that Kate was pushing mid, and my
Gotcha.
Jinx rotated to stop her, but she sucks and she died, and then Kate got the inhib. I didn't realize that's what was happening until it happened.
Gotcha.
Because I was trying to 1v2 basically.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are like, I would imagine you probably get leads relatively often, right? Like, you usually have a good amount of gold and everything.
Yeah, well, when I play Gwen, I just focus on farming. I don't really gank a whole lot, because it's hard to gank with her in the early game.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I mean. Like, you're gonna have a lot of leads, and so you're going to need to learn how to play these later parts of the game, even when you have a really big lead and it feels like you're carrying. I don't know what happens yet, so maybe they completely run you down. But there's probably a lot of times where the decision making in the later parts of the game is the problem, or again, how you approach fights. So that's probably a lot what we'll focus on. You should be farming this camp as well instead of going here. You could just farm this one camp and then gank after. Because again, like, notice what's happening is you're wasting, and also again, mana boots, right? But you're wasting a lot of time where now there's all these camps up that you're just not farming, and so even if you end up getting a kill, which you did, you're losing out on nearly as much gold just from not farming these camps anyways, because now that you didn't farm these camps, you're not going to be able to farm all of your camps by the time that the dragon spawns or herald spawns and recall. So now either you lose out on some of this gold because you skipped them to go farm, or to go to the objective rather, which would be essentially losing as much gold as you lost from, or as you gained from that kill. So like, it's not actually beneficial to go from that kill. You might as well have just farmed, because you didn't have enough time to both go for that gank and farm all your camps before the objective. So you can kind of see we're on the same timer, where once again, you're at 5 minutes, you have these exact same, literally the same 2 camps, right, that you need to farm, that you could farm, and now, the objective spawning. So this is the clear main issue with your early game, is that you need to not be wasting that time, and it's going to be this time frame where it's like, you're doing your first full clear as fast as you possibly can, but your second clear, you need to be done with your red side. You need to be done with your red side closer to like 330 to 350, so you can get over to this side and start farming it. Because then you'll give yourself a 20-second window to recall, whereas what you're doing is you're giving yourself no time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I'm trying to gank for my team because I'm telling you, dude, like they'll throw a fit if you don't gank. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm
so
not
okay,
getting
I
ganked.
agree with you. I agree with you. Sorry for interrupting, but I agree with you. And so, within this time frame, right? Say that you did clear these two camps quicker, like I said, you'd be done around, let's say let's find when the blue buff actually spawns, because you should be able to get on the blue buff as soon as it spawns if you're doing it as I'm telling you. It spawns with 30 seconds left to the objective, and you would have already cleared these two again if you did it properly. And so let's say you have then 20 seconds before the objective. Well, now you're giving yourself 20 seconds to gank topside. And so is there really that big of a difference between ganking bot one time versus ganking top one time? No, either way you're ganking someone once. So like if you do what you're doing, your top lane, your dual lane might still throw a fit for you not ganking them, right? Like in some games, not this game, but some games that will happen. And so even with what you're doing, you still aren't creating more opportunities to gank. You're just ganking at different times. I'm telling you to gank after these camps are done, because then you're guaranteeing gold and then having the possibility of getting a kill. But instead what you're doing is you have the possibility of the kill and no guarantee of this gold because you're not getting it until later. Is that logic make sense? Do you have disagreements with that or anything?
No, it makes a lot. Like the reason I gank is because it's happened to me in this rank is that people will complain and whine and throw a fit because you're not ganking them because they're losing their lane. It's
Yeah.
like, first off, that's not my fault. So, I don't feel responsible for you losing your lane. And then me ganking you, like, why should I gank you? And so I do it just so they don't, throw the game and throw a fit and sit in base and whine and complain. And so that's why I do it. And so I guess I need to focus on my farm and my clear more. And I'll do that. I'll just like I know Gwen's like she's a farmer champion and a late game
Yeah.
champion. I've been watching a lot of videos on her. Like I'm trying to
And
get
so
better
yeah,
at
if
that.
you do feel the need to help your teammates, whatever, play a fast, clear speed, good ganking jungler. Play a Mumu, play Vi, play Xin Zhao. I don't care. Those champions can do what you're saying, where you would still be able to farm, because those champs, don't get me wrong, you still need to be efficient, but because their clear speeds are faster, you get those extra timers to gank. And so yeah, if that's what you want to do, play those champs. I like this really much a lot by you, by the way, that you go to Herald. Like I said, obviously we'd want it to be quicker, but the fact that you do this when your team's all inting is great.
Oh, yeah, I
But
was like,
yeah,
there's no way I'm going to Dragon when like four of them, two of my teammates just died and four of them over there. No way.
yeah,
I'm not
exactly. It's
going over
perfect.
there.
And so this is exactly kind of like the mindset I want more often, right, to see from you, is that type of decision, which I think is great. And then, yeah, the other thing is like your teammates are going to throw minor hissy fits, but usually they're not actually going to run it down. Like I know it happens. Don't get me wrong. I've experienced it too. But would you agree that most of the time they're not actually going to straight up, like that Mordekaiser even didn't actually lose the game until it was truly unwinnable. Like before that, he was trying to win, even if he was pinging you 24/7 while it happened. Like that's usually what's going to happen. And so the point is, as soon as you start carrying, they're going to try and they're going to be fine with it. Like the second that you get a double kill and then all of a sudden the game's looking good because you farmed really well, they're going to try 90% of the time. No, 10% of the time they don't, and sucks, right? It's annoying. It makes sense to be frustrated about it. But those players are probably bad enough where you would have lost anyway. Because the thing is, too, when you try to force these ganks on these people, you usually end up losing a bunch anyway. And you can see even here, like, not your fault that your top laners are getting pushed into their turret. But say that you did have that 20-second window to gank them that we spoke about, maybe something changes. A lot of times it doesn't, but every once in a while it does. And so that's like the other thing, is like usually the people who are bad and getting mad at you, they're going to lose anyway. But yeah, this game is extremely unlucky early game. I mean, this is an 8-kill Caitlyn in the early game, but you say you farm it and you get it back to a point where you can actually win. And so I think this alone is kind of proof that this works, right? Like, you're in a
Yeah,
game like
it
this.
was really, really close.
Yeah.
We just didn't have a wave, like I said at the end, and then two of my teammates just overstayed. I
Yeah.
pinged them off, and they were like, "No, we're gonna stay here and die." And I'm like, "Okay,
Exactly.
cool."
And so there becomes, and this is a pretty common, I'm actually currently on a lose streak, like playing Nautilus, and if I wanted, I could try to change every single small, or everything that I did, right? Every like detail, everything. Or I could try to optimize what I'm doing and have the confidence that for the most part what I'm doing is right. There's probably a few mistakes and probably some of it's team, like it is a mixture. And the reason I say that is because you're currently have the right mindset that you should farm, try to get yourself strong, and you're currently doing that, right? Where your gold this game is as high as everyone's, apart from the fucking 11 kill Caitlyn. And so you could continue this playstyle and try to get better at it through these things we're showing you, like, you know, 1, the fighting, like keeping track of spells better, 2, using less value on dragons and more on getting that gold in the mid game, like, you know, second dragon when that's roughly 30 seconds, 45 seconds before spawning, go opposite side, or like being more efficient in your early game so that you're able to clear your blue side a second time so you can get on the dragon as soon as it spawns rather than at about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. All of these optimizations you could make, or you could be like, nope, I'm just going to go spam gank 24/7 because my teammates are complaining. Now, if you just go and spam gank 24/7, well, then you're going to have no gold and you're going to just deal with the same problems. So the point is, you can choose a playstyle. You can play the ganking playstyle, you can play the farming, you can play whatever. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to be efficient in farming your camps, and you're going to have to play that style of play properly because both styles of play work. Like, I have climbed playing Vi, I still farm a good amount on Vi, but playing more, like, you know, for my team. And I've also climbed playing Camille, playing purely selfishly. So it's not about only one style working, it's about optimizing that. And the current optimizations are all of the ones I just mentioned. And so if we get better on those, that's kind of like, because I get it's hard to get past that mental barrier when your teammates are flaming you. And the reality is you're going to have a lot of those games no matter what rank you are. And you're also not going to suddenly climb to master just because I give you a few tips. It's going to take time to get better at all of these details. And yeah, so the point is, you kind of get it, but you end up getting the shutdown as well onto that, you know, really fed Caitlyn, and so now you're extremely fed. And so again, at this point in the game, what I would do, I would go bot side during this dragon to get that gold, whereas you're probably going to go top side contest the dragon, even though that Caitlyn's super, super strong, which you do. And the only reason it worked is because they're absolutely awful, but there's no way that them being down being up 3.5 thousand gold, that they shouldn't be on a dragon as soon as it spawns. The consistent play for you is to go bot side and get that gold, even though this happened to work.
My thinking was that she was dead, and it was like I needed to make a play somewhere. That was my thinking. It was like, hey, you know, the fed Caitlyn's dead in the graveyard. Let's get something done while she's in gray screen. So
she's up 5 seconds before dragon, and if they're reasonable, like two of your teammates aren't here.
Yeah.
One teammate's here. We only see one of them. So we don't know where Kayn is. We don't know where Lux is. So there could be 2 here. And the Caitlyn spawns in 2 seconds, which means if she runs here, she'll be like 5 seconds, 10 seconds late. So again, if they play properly, that wouldn't work. I understand the thought process, and I don't think it's awful. And obviously it worked, right? And in lower ranks, sometimes these, you know, quick plays because the enemy are really dumb will work. And so I don't hate the thought process. Like, I don't think it's awful, and it makes sense because Caitlyn does have a small window where she won't be here. Again, same reasoning as I stated. I still think it's better to make the consistent play for the gold on a different side of the map. However, this play has logic to it, and it's not something I'm going to be like, you can't do this, is awful. I understand that. But in a lot of other circumstances, because 2 of your teammates weren't here, because the enemy could have been there, say they were there, you're going to be kind of screwed, and then a Caitlyn's going to show up, she's going to ace you guys, and the game ends there. And that's what would happen a lot, I would feel like. So that's basically my thoughts. Here you get a double, and then you're going to die probably to Caitlyn because she's really fed. Obviously, totally fine to take this kill, or take these 2 kills. And then, yeah, the Caitlyn's really fed, so maybe not. Yeah, unlucky. But yeah, I still think that most of the gameplay is definitely good here. And like I said, like, even in these games where I'm obviously giving you, like, I'm saying you should have done this, you should have done this, you're playing better than all of your teammates, right? In this game, and last game you were playing better than most of your teammates as well. So the reality is we also kind of have to accept, like, most of the games our teammates are going to be pretty bad. But yeah, the Caitlyn ends up overextending. So a lot of times too, what happens is when these people get really big leads, they get really cocky, and then they'll overextend a lot. So you still have the chance of catching up through just farming really efficiently. I'm going to skip through and just see what we find is important here, because again, more so focused on the decision making. So the first thing here is, and this is likely what could have led to potentially a lot of like the backdoor thing you kind of speak about later, is that your focus on waves is lacking again. So again, there's a fight here. We see Kayn and we see one other person, and only one of our teammates are there, and we should just accept that they're dead because 2 of our teammates are far away. And then we just push this mid wave. So when there is like a mid inhib dead, especially, the wave comes for free and you get a bunch of free gold from it. So you should have just gone and farmed this wave, pushed it out so that you're not getting pressured super hard on your base. And then the enemy have to go back to mid or whatever, rather than trying to go fight when your teammate's kind of like alone and your other teammates aren't really close. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a lot of like the mid game, a lot of your focus on waves is kind of the biggest issue. And then maybe they get there, and they probably don't though. But You end up winning this fight, I guess, because your teammates end up showing up. Me is really risky. Like, I don't really like this choice. It works out, but it's really close to kind of throwing really hard. Like, our teammates aren't really that close by, and you're walking into these two people who could very easily, like, have a chance of killing you. Maybe you just think you have enough damage. I guess you were right, but to me is very risky. I guess taking a risky fight when you are down like 3k is not the end of the world, though, so I guess I'm not, like, really that... I don't really have a huge problem with it. Again, sometimes I'll look at things, I'll be like, you know, this kind of rubs me the wrong way, but I actually don't think it's bad of a choice to try to outplay that if you see an angle for it. So I think it is pretty fine. And then again, Caitlyn ends, you just get Baron after this, probably. If the Kayn dies? The Kayn doesn't die, so I wouldn't force Baron. We do force anyway. I don't have a lot of confidence in this. Now, it's a 50-50, and you're, again, a little behind, so trying to flip isn't the worst choice ever, but I'm still not a fan because the game is swinging kind of in your direction anyway, like in your favor. Getting off of this, though, is definitely a little greedy, but it works out. Again, I don't know, like this Kayn just didn't even try to steal the Baron, and 3 of his teammates were alive. And I don't know if you're just, like, able to predict that they're just never going to try to play the game. But if you can predict that, then, like, I'm you know, I'm going to need to learn how to do that as well. But I don't really have a reason, like, a good reason for why we would flip this. Again, if the only thought process could be Caitlyn's dead, she's really strong, and the enemy are behind, or we're behind, rather, and so we just want to flip the game because we're probably going to lose if we don't. But to me, you're scaling up really nice. The game is starting to look really good, and pretty likely we end up getting stolen, so I'm not a big fan of it. But again, this isn't like something I hate. It's more just something I'm personally wouldn't do, if that makes sense. So it's like a different level of how bad of a mistake I guess I consider it.
Yeah, I didn't realize the turret was still up there. But yeah, like, I hadn't really seen the Kayn do a whole lot. Like, he seemed kind of cowardly. So I didn't think he tried to. I went over there just to see if he was there, and I snipped at him a bit, and
Yeah.
I just went back. My thing was, like, Caitlyn was dead, or like coming back from spawn or whatever. I needed to make a play somewhere before she came back.
Yeah.
That was kind of my thought
And since you
process.
guys are in like a fine gold spot, I'd be fine with just scaling and waiting. And the other problem is your turrets keep like getting pushed because of this too, right? So when we're making like a lot of plays around here and whatever, rather than pushing the wave first, it's a little problematic as well. That's why I kind of prefer pushing the wave. And then here you definitely shouldn't contest dragon. You are equal gold, you're scaling up, and they don't. Nobody can get soul. Like, 3rd dragon, if each team has a dragon, is mega useless. So I have no reason to fight this. My teammates aren't nearby. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, if your teammates were all there and you thought I'm gonna win the fight, then that's fine. But this, look at the map. Nobody is even nearby on your team. Obviously, you can't tell where they are because we have the God vision, but it doesn't matter. You don't know where they are, so they could be anywhere. And you see still 3 people, 2 of them are mid. This is completely troll. You're probably not going to die. Like, realistically, you'll just get out. But this does nothing for you. Now, imagine you were pushing a wave right now so that the enemy don't have as much pressure on your lanes, right? You push mid, you push top, you push somewhere. Doesn't even matter. Probably play for this bot turret. Like, this bot turret, if you just went bot and played for it, which would be the ideal play, would give you 1,000 gold, and now you'd be up 1.5k instead of up 1k. And a dragon never gives 1k worth of gold, like, stats that are actually valuable. Like, it's pretty useless. So you go top side eventually, which is mostly fine. Again, bot side would have been slightly better, but top side is fine. But then again, trying to force this fight into this dragon, it literally doesn't matter. You're 1v4. If the enemy were human, you die. Like, and then yeah, you try to flip and you end up dying. Probably, maybe you somehow live. Okay, so this is just extreme luck. Like, this is extreme luck that they completely troll the game. No way that you shouldn't have died there. You should have 100% died. And even though you still 3 of your teammates die, and that is because or 2, I guess, but it's because you tried to get them to fight, right? So basically, just to focus his waves again. This dragon doesn't actually matter. It doesn't do anything for us. If it was a more important dragon, like they had soul, or they had 2 dragons rather, or you had 2 dragons, then sure. But even then, don't contest if your teammates are nowhere nearby, and you keep contesting when your teammates are nowhere nearby.
Well, I guess my thing is, like, I'm the jungler. It's my job to try to get the dragon or the baron or whatever. And then when I don't try to get it, like I said, like, they get all pissy. So it's like, okay, well, if it's my job to get these
Okay,
things,
so okay. If your teammates, I guarantee they wouldn't get pissy at you here. I think you're using it a bit too much as an excuse now. I think that to an extent it's true. Your teammates will yell at you and flame you and whatever, because it's what they do. But your teammates are nowhere nearby. There is no way that their current thought in their mind right now is, I want my teammate to get dragon. Because if they really wanted you to get the dragon, they would be on the dragon. Like, and then if you, the thing that they're gonna do to blame you is if you missed a smite. They're gonna be like, oh, it's his fault, even though it's not your fault that missing a smite happens if the enemy jungle's there as well. That's what they would be blaming you for. Not, oh, everyone on the enemy team is there, you're the only one here, how did you not want to be for them? Like, they are, every once in a while they will, trust me, I know they say fucking crazy things. Mute the chat, first thing. Second thing is, most of the time, even Emerald players are not going to tell you, you should have 1v4'd them and took the dragon. They're just not going to do that. And also, you're like 10 kills right now this game. Usually they don't choose to flame the person with 10 kills. They do, again, I understand, it happens. I have to make that very clear. But it's not usually what's going to happen. So I do think it's a little too much of an excuse in your mind at this point. I think to an extent it's very valid, but to an extent we're using it as an excuse now. And then with what happened, with the Caitlyn pushing this in, the reason this is able to get pushed in is because we're not pushing the waves before we go to objectives. So like if we look at the objective, as we're contesting it, even though we have Baron, the top wave is not pushing very far and the mid wave is not pushing very far. When you could have just gone through this mid waves, and if you really want to create an opportunity to go for this objective with your team, then push the wave first, then go and fight afterwards. Your job is not to get the objective. Usually, the team that has the objective is just the one that's winning more fights. It's usually not the one with the better jungler. That's not really actually how it works. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then at this point, your turrets are very low and your base is open. You definitely need to be pushing through mid first, because otherwise they are going to just win the game through pushing the wave. And this is not hindsight because I see that it says Kate backdoor. This is just, this is just what you do. And so you push out the mid wave. This is perfectly fine. You try to go get gold. It's perfectly fine. Go for a kill. That's also fine. Continue pushing. All of this is fine. The top wave's pretty fine. So you don't have to be too worried about that. You push everything out. You guys get the waves pushed. Get another kill or something. Everything's fine here. You should just go contest Elder probably. Your teammates kind of grief, but not really anything you can... Oh, I guess you go back.
We didn't have a wave. I ping it. I say, hey, let's go to Elder. We didn't have a wave.
Oh, so you mean they killed themselves here? This is what you mean by we didn't have a wave. Okay. Yeah, they grief, and then you try to go Elder.
And then I'm like, here they all come. Back up.
Yeah, then Kate goes mid, and you don't notice Kate, and so then she wins. And so this is
I saw
pretty...
Jinx go, and I was like, I don't want to lose Elder to Mundo and Kane or whoever else was there, and so my mom was on that, and I was not paying attention to Kate because I saw Jinx.
No, yeah, this is pretty reasonable. You end up trying to go there, you don't see the wave right away, it gets pushing in quick because they have the inhib, and so it's messy, and you end up getting backdoored. This is a reasonable mistake. Like, this, technically, yes, you should have noticed the Caitlyn's there, you should have gone there. This is a reasonable mistake. This is not the one I have a problem with. This is fine. The issue is literally 3 minutes leading up to this and all of your mid-game mistakes that we spoke about. Of course, like if the wave, like here, we have an even wave. We have Baron, as we can see under us, and we're not pushing this mid-wave out. And so from what, 15 minutes right now until 15:20, 15:30, 15:40, 15:45. 45 seconds, your mid-wave with Baron and the advantage went from right where my cursor currently is, do you see where my cursor is right now, to here. It cannot do that. It has to go way further. You have to get way more value out of your Baron. And again, it's not like this was Solar Elder. If this was a Solar Elder, that'd be different because you should use the Baron to get the Solar Elder. This is a third dragon that doesn't matter. Each team has a dragon and you didn't even get it. And you should have died. You got very lucky you didn't. So again, I'm speaking fast and maybe slightly loud just because I have this mistake happen a lot, and so I really am emphasizing it. I'm genuinely not like mad at you or flaming you, to be clear. I know I sound sometimes like that. I want to just make that very clear that I just am sometimes animated, I guess, when I talk. But the point is we should be on this mid wave way earlier, and also your Nexus gets way lower because of that mistake. You can see, right? And so even though they don't end, it kind of leads to a potential end later. And this is just a microcosm of your other mistakes, which are, again, after this, you push the mid wave. It's good that we finally get it, but we're not pushing like top wave. We're not pushing bot. We're not pushing all of these waves on the timers we should be, and then it leads to a bad decision or a bad, situation where then, yes, like here, not really that much of your fault. Like, sure, technically, could you have noticed? Sure, but I'm not going to flame you for that. I don't think that's really what lost you the game. Technically, it's the last play, and you could have won if you did notice it, but it's like, that's not what I'm going to be mad at. Does that kind of all make sense?
Yeah. So push more waves. Okay. I figured that'd be like more of my Baron laner's job, but I guess
Yeah, and I understand why you would feel that way. But like I said, you go and you watch the top players, they're going to be pushing a lot of waves. And yeah, I mean, you can't control your teammates. That is the reality. And so the and it gives you a bunch of free gold. Like the biggest reason that gold is so much higher on these really high elo junglers compared to low elo junglers is the efficiency, but it's like in terms of their camps, but it's also with these waves. These waves just give you a bunch of free gold. So yeah, I would say we're just going to start going into the notes. Stop me anytime you have questions. Even if I'm in the middle of typing or talking, just interrupt me. If you remember anything specific you wanted me to write down, or if you want me to change the wording of something, just tell me, obviously, as well. But yeah, going into the early game, need to make sure we clear each side twice before roughly 4:35, I'm going to say, so we can recall for objective. So I need you just creating that extra time for you to recall before the objective so that you can be on the first one. Then we said contest to one of our stronger member. Herald's preferable. Don't value dragons so much. All that matters is denying soul. And then use second dragon as a way to get more gold on the other side of the map when our team is behind. And then just for the mindset thing, think of teammates as bots, mute chat, mute pings, and then in all caps, they are idiots, because they are. And so I really want to emphasize that. Then the other really important, so we said the getting the gold on yourself, the efficiency, that type of thing is really important. But you're overall, again, you're better than the average Emerald player at that pretty significantly. Like you have a pretty good understanding of that, and you can optimize, because everyone can optimize. So I want you to still focus on that, but that's not the main thing I want you to focus on. You're generally able to get to a pretty solid spot in the game, gold-wise. Even like your teams aren't too far behind it, and you're in a good spot. The issue is what's happening in the mid game. And the first big thing is fighting, right? Like when you are fighting, keep track of cooldowns, and the most dangerous enemies. Much better in fights. So like this is one of the biggest problems, is that once you get that gold, you're just not, again, play around your W cooldown, I would say, especially when that's not up. Got to be making better use of that. And then again, when there's a lot of enemies in a spot and they haven't used their spells, don't go straight in. Wait for your teammates to engage. Wait for your teammates to make plays. Wait for the enemy to waste their spells. Then you can start to go in. And then the other thing is, need to be way, way, way more aware of where our teammates are, and not make plays when they are not nearby. And then I'm quickly going to go back to the replays and just show you like how frequently this is a mistake. So the dragon play that we spoke about already, well, not this one, but the ocean dragon, right? Like this play, here on this dragon, where, again, let's look at the map when we're on dragon, like right, here. That should never happen. And this is just one of the many times that you are making a play. Like there was a different play time in the bot side where you had to fight. Kind of hard to find this specific moment right now. See if we can end up finding it. If we don't, it's not the end of the world. Whatever. So there was a play where you were bot side, one of your other teammates was nearby, and then like 4 of the enemy are here and nobody else is nearby. So like a lot of times just that map awareness for fighting is very important. And it kind of makes sense as like if you were a Baron laner before, where you're obviously alone a lot more, so it's not something you're going to pay attention to as much when you're in fights. You're just taking a lot more 1v1s. So there's that, and then need to focus on pushing waves. About 30 seconds to a minute before objectives, especially mid wave. And then also need to be okay taking waves past 7:30 if they are not covered by a teammate and the wave is neutral or pushing into us. Do you know what I mean by neutral or pushing into us?
Yeah, if it's like we have the same amount of minions, that's neutral. If it's like there's more red than there is blue, it's
Yeah,
pushing
yeah.
into us. And yeah.
And so that's really when you're going to be especially concerned about it. If yours is pushing into them, then it's fine because, you know, it won't apply pressure to your turrets. So you can still take the minions if it's convenient, but it's not as important. I think these are the main points. Again, like I really want you focusing on how you play the fights out and how you utilize minions. And then also your awareness of dragons. I think like those are the three things that really need to be fixed. And then your efficiency still could be improved, but it's overall good. And again, anytime you catch yourself basically like giving in to your teammates, just think about this coaching, because again, don't listen to your teammates. Like I know like people don't like when I say this, because the problem is then what happens is a bad player won't listen to their teammates, but it turns out that that bad player is worse than their teammates and their teammates are making the correct call. And so when I'm telling you to do this, you need to understand why you're doing, and it's a lot harder to play this way. Like it requires a lot more because you have to actually understand the game. When your teammates end up doing really, really well, so like I'll also write this, when team is doing well and we are doing bad, then we can listen a bit more. Because like, if you see that you have a 4-0 Caitlyn and you're 0-3 and 0, and maybe that Caitlyn's diamond and your emerald, you know, like we can start to be like, okay, maybe I'll listen a little bit. I'm not saying that I want you to follow everything they do and just gank and gank and gank, but a little bit more, you can be like, okay, I'm going to play more towards this person. I'm going to be trusting them a bit more. But overall, you need to understand, if you really want to play this ganking style, you want to help your teammates out, don't play Gwen. Play towards your champion strengths. Don't listen to your teammates, because unless you think that your emerald teammates are better than me, logically speaking, it doesn't make sense to listen to them. Maybe you do, it's fine, you could think whatever you want. But basically that's it. Does that make sense? Do you have any additional questions or anything? Oh, and lastly, actually, I forgot to rush and a boot. Okay, that's all. So any questions or anything?
Yeah, you are uploading this to YouTube, right?
Yeah, I'll probably upload it within 3 to 5 days, most likely.
Okay.
Maybe less, I don't know.
That works. Yeah, okay. I don't think I have any more questions. Yeah, the reason I try to gank, I guess, is just to not hear them
Yeah.
complain. So that makes. I just really like Gwen. I know she's like really strong late game. That's why I really like playing. I tend to carry her with her. I'm trying to get out of Emerald, trying to get into Diamond. That's the goal. So trying to figure out what I was doing wrong.